and welcome. Today, we follow a diplomatic effort that cautiously but unmistakably appears to be moving in a more hopeful direction: the evolving framework between the United States and Iran. After months of tension and regional uncertainty, a new understanding has begun to take shape, one built on dialogue, recalibration, and the prospect, however fragile, of a greater regional stability. Over the next hour, we'll examine where these talks stand, what they could mean for the wider region, and what still needs to happen for early progress to become something lasting. I am Sheikha Tamimi, and this is our special live coverage. For the first time in some time is producing more questions about implementation than about possibility. Washington and Tehran are working carefully and not without setbacks to translate recent understandings into a durable framework for cooperation. The talks in Switzerland have faced delays, yet both sides continue to affirm their commitment to the process, a signal that the door to a wider settlement remains open. This report looks at where negotiations stand and the issues still on the table.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance arrived in Switzerland to participate in the opening of talks between Washington and Tehran, while the Iranian diplomatic delegation also traveled there for technical discussions focused on the mechanisms for implementing the memorandum of understanding aimed at ending the war. Vance joins U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, who are already in Switzerland to follow up on the technical aspects of the negotiations, as Pakistani delegation and Qatari mediators are also participating. Meanwhile, the Pakistani Prime Minister's office announced the arrival in Switzerland of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir to participate in the high-level talks concerning the implementation of the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding. The Lebanese issue tops the agenda of the talks, as an emergency session dedicated to Lebanon was placed at the forefront of discussions, making it the first issue to be addressed by the U.S. and Iranian delegations. On his part, Vance asserted before departing for Switzerland that achieving a ceasefire in Lebanon was the key objective of the talks, given the renewed Israeli occupation strikes on Lebanese territory. Meanwhile, an Iranian official confirmed to the network that ending the conflict in Lebanon was a top priority for the Iranian delegation and was at the forefront of the agenda. The meetings represent the first official communication and engagement between the parties since the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding, representing an important step to discuss implementation mechanisms and advance the agreed understandings toward more advanced stages.
منظومة الاتصالات بالكويت شغالة بكفاءة عالية ولله الحمد، والهيئة العامة للاتصالات وتقنية المعلومات مستعدة لأي طارئ لا قدر الله. في ظل التوترات اللي تمر فيها المنطقة، فعلنا خطط الطوارئ وعززنا التعاون مع الجهات المعنية عشان نضمن استقرار الخدمات الرقمية وسرعة الاستجابة لأي مستجد. الوضع تحت المتابعة وكل الجهات المختصة على أتم الجاهزية. عسى الله يحفظ الكويت وأهلها.
Dear viewers, to better understand the strategic dimensions of this evolving U.S.-Iran negotiations, the implications for regional security, and the prospects for long-term stability in the Gulf and the wider Middle East, we are pleased to be joined by Dr. Khalil Mullah Yusuf, retired colonel and former advisor to the National Security Agency, who is also a strategic political analyst. Dr. Khalil has closely followed regional security developments for many years and brings extensive expertise in strategic affairs, crisis management, and regional security dynamics. Dr. Khalil, welcome to our live coverage once again.
Welcome.
After a very warm welcome, let's unpack the latest developments for our viewers. Now, the agreement is being described as a 60-day opportunity to negotiate a comprehensive settlement.
Yes.
From a strategic perspective, is this a genuine path toward a lasting agreement or merely a temporary pause in tensions?
As you just mentioned, it's a 60 days time frame, but positively, it's a good thing that it's signed on time. It delayed few days, and the good thing that all parties attend today in Switzerland, which is another good thing, good indication that we are on the good path. Depends what will go the schedule today, but we are on the good path, and this is the right way to solve a conflict like this one
So,
in this region.
so the finally signing this memorandum of understanding after months of tension is still, analysts can agree on the fact that it's a positive. It's a positive step towards the right direction.
As you just mentioned, it's a step.
It's a step.
It's not the final result. It's a step, and we always hold with the good things, especially in a conflict like the one we face during the past months.
Especially that the conflict has been shrouded with
Yes.
uncertainty for almost 100 days. So be it the markets, be it the people, be it the negotiating
It was a
teams.
total chaos
It was a total chaos.
in all aspects, militarily, diplomatically, in the
Economically.
economic, social life in different countries. All aspects been involved in this conflict. But the good thing, that the good indication is coming day by day. That's not coming by a sudden or by surprise. It takes efforts for more than 100 days. Mediators been pushing hard. Countries within the GCC and the region being involved hardly. And no one can deny our efforts now in solving the problem.
Now, throughout the history of U.S.-Iran relations, actually, periods of de-escalation have been often followed by renewed tensions.
Yes.
What makes this understanding different from previous agreements?
This is a good question. Yes, Iran and United States since 1980 passed through many suddens, we call them, suddens crisis. Because of the missiles, because of the nuke, because of the tension, whatever it takes, we've been through in and out crisis. The good thing with this memorandum, if we read it deeply, in Article 14 in this memorandum, after the signature, final signature, in all the aspects, the final result will be submitted with a Security Council resolution. It's not a matter of agreement between the United States and Iran. And I think that sentence being deliberately put there to give the credit for the future. So anything happen, this is not a matter of Iran or withdrawal of the United States from the agreement. Now it's been submitted by a Security Council resolution. So everyone will be involved if anything escalated after the final signature.
Because given the fact that Iran used the Strait of Hormuz as a negotiating card,
Yes.
a very strong negotiating
Till now.
card.
Till
Till now, indeed.
Yes.
So the entire world actually is, one might say, a part of part of it.
Yes, but despite what's happened before, all the agreements between the United States and Iran, it's always been taken by two countries. Now, if it goes smoothly with all the articles has been written, finally, Security Council from the UN will issue a result and concluded everything has been discussed, and that will be a titan for the United States and Iran to go back again to the crises and what we call them different matters. So that's why this agreement or this memorandum is very, very critical and important. And we read it from that side. Some
So
people
because
said
of-
it's not mandatory, but no.
So because of that article, that specific article, it acts as an insurance and a deterrence.
Yes.
So the two sides wouldn't take a step back. They would
Yes.
actually just take a step forward and move on.
The whole international community will be involved in that after. And I think even we will not notice a veto with it, because even the 5 permanent members agrees to have a final solution to what's happened in the
this
Middle East,
crisis.
and especially in this region.
Now, Dr. Khalil, do you believe both sides have entered these negotiations from a position of confidence or from a desire to avoid the costs of further escalation?
Let's say both,
A mix of both.
a mix of both. Confidence, you can see the US side had more confidence because they declare everything they do. With the Iranians, they start building the confidence day by day. 2 days before the signature, as we mentioned before, we saw and hear announcements from there and there, agreement and disagreement, agreement and disagreement on the paper. But finally, when it's signed by the president and it's published to the audience inside Iran, we can notice the unity toward that paper. So everyone said, even the declaration from Mujtaba's office said, the way to solve everything is through this memorandum. So this is agreement from both parties. Still, I think the IRGC tried to leverage there and there, like what they announced today, to close the Strait of Hormuz because Lebanon being bombed. But finally, by the last 2 hours, we hear an announcement from the Israelis, they stop it, and from the Lebanese, they get guaranteed from the Israelis that they will stop bombing. So all the parties tried to take the stick from the IRGC to do wrong things within this memorandum. Everyone wants this to go in the smooth way.
So all parties, the immediate ones and the secondary and the third ones, are all moving towards the fact that that diplomacy is the path toward lasting peace in this region.
Let's say it's the only path.
It's the only path, and this step is
a crisis in this shape and nature. You cannot solve it with military. You cannot solve it with economy and sanctions. It should be diplomacy, an agreement, a clear agreement signed by everyone involved, and this will at least give us, inshallah, or let's say centuries, but let's say decades of stability in this region, inshallah.
Inshallah. Now, the agreement appears to focus heavily on sequencing and mutual commitments.
Yes.
In your assessment, what will be the most difficult confidence-building measure for both sides?
Because of the nature of the relation between the United States and Iran, the trust-building issue will take a while. Especially the untrust method being the cause of this crisis from the first stage. But I think with the time, with the efforts of the mediators, they will build up the trust. So I will show you, I can relieve the seas on your ports, and you should show me the open of the Strait of Hormuz. I will lift the sanctions temporary on your oil and gas and banks. And on the other side, you should stop funding groups in the area. So I think day by day, they get the message, both parties, that you never show up your force without having a diplomatic solution. So I think from the beginning, the diplomatic solution was behind the tables, behind the closed doors. And now, inshallah, we can see the results.
And so the diplomatic solution was always, despite what both sides have been stating,
Yes.
or a specific side had been
Yes.
stating, the diplomatic solution has been always the only way to lasting just peace. But due to the fact that both sides have trust issues when
Yes.
it comes to one another,
Yes.
it took a while.
It will even
Take first.
today, by the end of today, they will finish the first session. And we should notice it. If it's trust build-up, or there is still methods of untrust because of the involvement of high number and high ranking officials. The vice president, the parliament speaker or the house speaker from Iran, prime minister from Pakistan, and prime minister from Qatar. So it's a heavy table. If we call it in diplomacy, it's a heavy table. And especially the teams within. So everyone tried to push this day for a success.
Now, The main reason why this crisis happened in the first place was
Yes.
because the U.S.'s claims of trying to avert the Iranian regime and Iran
Yes.
from obtaining a nuclear weapon due to the enriched uranium.
Yes.
But now one of the main focuses, if not the main focus in the MOU and in future negotiations, is actually the Strait of Hormuz. The opening the Strait of Hormuz, given the fact that the whole world has been held hostage
Yes.
due to the strait. In your point of view, my question here is, was it an extra strategic move from the Iranians to use the Strait of Hormuz to actually push the agenda, push the negotiations regarding the nuclear file even a little bit further?
From my point of view, to be honest, especially in this issue, I think the nuke still in the first paragraph in the agenda of the United States. But it doesn't matter if we add another matter. So the Iranians, the Strait of Hormuz, for them, start to be a very strategic leverage. Finally, which is not good for the area, finally the Iranians found the strategic leverages where they can move the waters from, the Strait of Hormuz. But when the president of Iran signed the memorandum, the first sentence he said, we give a promise that we will not deliberately go for a nuke weapon. And even President Trump in his first statement said, we will not allow them to have a nuclear bomb. So by reality, the nuke is there. And even today, by the announcement we hear from Switzerland, the nuke issue will be from the first thing that's been discussed today. Yes, the Strait of Hormuz being added now as a very complicated issue. Finally, the Iranians found it,
Yes.
which is not good for us, but they found it.
Well, that's the thing. One of the most significant provisions, along with the nuclear file, is the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz.
Yes.
From a security standpoint, how important is this development for regional and global stability, following the fact that Iran has used it as a very strong leverage ship?
Alhamdulillah, for the last 10 days or a week, normal life come back to nature in the Gulf after the stop of the fire or the ceasefire. We need our chain of supply to be opened to give our economy a good leverage to move. Yes, we've been surviving, we've been doing good so far, but Strait of Hormuz is very important for our economy. We need that chain to be opened for our gas and oil and commerce and everything. So it is a good indication. The whole area, you can hear the announcement from the first day. It was a good thing. It was a good thing, which is good. But the problem is if the Iranians in any, we call it drop in any situation, they will go straightly to that Strait of Hormuz.
So that's actually my follow-up question. Do you expect Hormuz to remain a pressure card during future negotiations?
In my assessment, during the upcoming 60 days, it will stay a leverage and pressure point.
During the upcoming 60
Yes.
days. So following after the 60 days, it would have almost expired?
Let's
As a-
count it. Let's count it. By the end of this 60 days, we will reach September. The United States administration needs another 30 days or another 60 days till the mid-election. So I think the first reading of the delay of the meeting, we will see another extended of this period. Maybe they will reach another 30 days more or 45 days. By that time, I think United States will finish one of the main part issues that the president and his office looking forward to finish the mid-election and finish the internal issue. If anything happened wrong, they can deal with the Iranians again. So yes, within the 60 days, things will be going up and down. Not by military escalation, let's say by diplomatic escalation. We will hear announcement from there and there. We agree and disagree. But the good thing, if there is no fire, the ceasefire is still solid, this is a good point, at least for the upcoming 60 days.
So Iran has actually discussed future administrative arrangements
Yes.
and regulations concerning navigation through the strait. Could these arrangements create future disputes with regional or international stakeholders?
As the Iranians read it in their newspaper or in their news, they said, finally, United States give us the approval, give the Iranians the approval to control the Strait of Hormuz. But if we read Article 5 in the memorandum, which talks about this point exactly, that point said directly and even very loud, after the 60 days and after the final agreement, Iran should sit with Sultanate Oman to find a way and find the exact method to run the strait. But with the GCC countries and all the Gulf and all the countries in the Gulf, that's mean plus Iraq. So nothing will happen between Iran and Oman privately. That's when 8 countries or 9 countries will be involved. And in that sentence, we can saw under the international law regulation. So they cannot come with something new. They should go with the international law recognition, which is said this strait is an international water and no one allowed to have any fees. The Iranians talk about environmental fees, which is something new. If they like the environment, that's good. So you're talking about the smoke from the ships? Maybe somehow we will see at that time. But in Article 5, it was deliberately clear. Iran cannot submit fees and anything should be run by 9 countries, which is all using the Strait of Hormuz.
Now, looking beyond the agreement itself, what security guarantees is Iran likely seeking from the United States?
They talk about the forces within the border of Iran. Now we have a big navy efforts. United States agreed to move 90% of it, which is coming new with the crisis. The fifth fleet actually is responsible for this area from decades by organization effort from the US Army. It's not here because of Iran. They have fleets around the globe. The fifth fleet is responsible for this part of the world. So I think by moving more assets from the area and even the build up of force, it's going down, that will be a good assuring guaranteed for the Iranians. Add to that, there will be a Security Council resolution will guaranteed no one can escalate by himself without cause, but they cannot deny our rights to have an agreement with the countries. If they think by this agreement all the foreign forces will move from the Gulf states, this is something weird, because we have the right within our sovereignty to have agreements with countries for our purposes, for our security, not to attack the others. And I think the Iranians, by the end of the discussion, and they will understand that firmly, inshallah.
Now, in recent weeks, we have seen Qatar intensify its diplomatic efforts and maintain communication channels with both Washington and Tehran.
Yes.
How significant has Doha's role been in narrowing differences between the two sides? And could Gulf diplomacy become a permanent pillar in sustaining any future agreement?
We said that before. To be a good mediator, is to be acceptable by the parties of the conflict. That doesn't mean Kuwait and Bahrain and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and UAE and Oman is not acceptable, but Qatar in this crisis have some leverages with Iran because of the nature of the relation and the economic side and the diplomatic side. They have more leverages, and I think they've been candidates by the GCC because all our foreign ministers said so. Qatar is playing a big role in this discussions, but they represent the GCC within the discussion. So at least we had a guarantee nothing will be done in this region behind our backs, we call it, like the
Without
first
our
agreement.
knowledge, yes. Without our knowledge.
A lot of things being done without our knowledge in the area. Now with the attendance of the Prime Minister of Qatar, which is, we call it the highly government representative. That's mean our demands as a GCC countries will be in the table, inshallah.
Will be heard, inshallah. Now, the MOU between Washington and Tehran contains several political, security, and economic dimensions. In your assessment, what is Washington ultimately seeking to achieve?
First, I think, to get rid of the nuke file for good. Finish this story of 2.5 decades. Let's take it off the table. Now, Iran needs a lot of economic efforts to develop their infrastructure. Their infrastructure is highly being put under pressure since more than 20 years of sanctions. So economically, I think the United States will be involved heavily because now we talk about lifting sanctions, open the banks, SWIFT system will be opened again for the Iranians. So the military will stay there as a tool. But economically, that will open the door for peace in this region after diplomacy. If the diplomacy success, I think the next leverage should be economy.
Economy.
If we link our economies together, if we link our mutual interests together as Iran and United States, this would at least give them a guarantee that you will not harm your assets.
Own interests.
So that's, I think, even when they talk about the 300 billion investment budget, that's supported my analysis.
So we just spoke about Washington's, what is it seeking and its perspective, but what about Tehran's perspective? What are the strategic gains being pursued through this agreement?
It's been recognized as a big country in the region. They thought so, which is good. Let them thought so. The good thing, they finally find a path to find a final agreement. Instead of living under pressure, finally they found the final path and agreement to look forward to build their country away from the US pressure. And I think that's a good thing for the Iranians to finish the what we call it the American file pressure and look forward to build their own country.
What about recent developments in Lebanon? They nearly disrupted the diplomatic track. Does this indicate that regional files remain capable of derailing progress between Washington and Tehran?
The problem is there is the third player, which is Israel. But what we heard from the president and vice president criticizing Israel government, this is something new. This is give us an indication that the United States is taking this matter seriously and they want the discussion between Lebanon and Israel to be a success by the next week. So let's solve this issue because of the Iranians is using this issue as a matter of disagreement with the United States. So yes, this agreement between the United States and Iran will solve a lot of regional issues.
So,
and the security matter.
what's your assessment of the current developments that has been happening?
This is a good way. This is for my, at least my personal view.
Yeah, from your assessment.
In Lebanon, things will develop very quick within weeks from now, because of the efforts of the United States. They are serious this time to finish at least the Israeli-Lebanese file, which has been used by the Iranian as a leverage. And because of the effect of that file, the United States will never let that file to finish or harsh the argument between them and Iran.
So they're trying to basically, like you said, they're trying to deter any use of any kind of file by the Iranians.
By the way, they don't discuss Yemen. They don't discuss the matters in Iraq, because Lebanon, for the Iranians, is very important. When Qalabaf said 4,000 Lebanese citizens being killed in this war because they defend Iran, that's why Lebanon is very important as a front fight with the Israelis, as they mentioned. So because of the importance of that file, not Hezbollah, the importance of that file for the Iranians, I think this will be included in this argument for the memorandum of understanding and for the final agreement.
If I'm not mistaken, the Gaza Strip, the besieged Gaza Strip, has been actually used at the beginning of the crisis. As they tried to use it as leverage, but they couldn't succeed every time they were negotiating. Eventually, they dropped the file and they directed their attention to the Israeli-Lebanese file.
For them, for the Iranians, to be honest, Gaza has been destroyed for years now, and they don't move any fingers of their hands. But because of the importance of Hezbollah and the investment, years of efforts within the Quds forces in building that asset as Hezbollah, they try to keep it alive. If not militarily, at least Hezbollah will stay as a political active party within the Lebanese government. So Iran think Hezbollah should stay. They will fight till the last minute to make that success and keep Hezbollah survive. And at least pass this period, which is for them was a very difficult and a very hard one on Hezbollah, especially today. They're hitting a lot of the assets. So Iran tried to make Hezbollah survive at least this war, to play a role within the Lebanese political system.
So, Dr. Khalil, to recap on our segment for our dear viewers, the first steps that has been taken during the 60-day negotiation period are positive steps. Yes. The cloud of uncertainty that has been shrouding the region has been transformed into a cloud of cautious optimism, yes, regarding finding a solution finally to this crisis. And hope, of course, yes, and hope. And due to the fact that the Iranians has been using the Lebanese file as a leverage to the last minute regarding, yes, these negotiations, the United States is trying to nip the problem at its bud, yes, as one might say, and make sure that Iran has no more leverages
to harsh the
to move around.
Yes.
And of course, the nuclear file remains a top priority for the United States regarding their main focus, their main, yes, security focus, along with reopening the Strait of Hormuz and making sure that it remains open and accessible with safe maritime navigations for everyone in the world. Yes. Dr. Khalil Mullah Yusuf, retired colonel and former advisor to the National Security Agency, as well as political and strategic analyst, we thank you for your valuable input. Thanks. As usual.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Now, dear viewers, we turn to a closer look at the latest developments in the US and Iran's file over the past 24 hours.
actually talked to Senator Schatz about this last week as well. And so the State Department's going to be re-engaging. I'm not here to tell you we're going to yank this thing. We're not going to listen to his points of view. But the State Department a few weeks ago made the decision that we were going to re-engage.
Ladies and gentlemen, even as diplomacy advances, developments on the ground remain part of the wider picture. Lebanon has seen renewed tension following recent strike by Israeli occupation forces, a reminder that progress on one track doesn't happen in isolation from risk on another. This report has further details.
The death toll in the latest war by the Israeli occupation in Lebanon has now surpassed 4,000. Lebanon's health ministry said on Saturday that the latest figures comes following an Israeli occupation aggression strikes on the village of Qaneirat, near the port of Saydun, which killed 7 people and injured 13 others in initial toll. Among the victims of the attack were 5 children and 5 women. Earlier on Saturday, Israeli occupation strikes on southern Lebanon killed at least 7 people, hours after reports emerged of a ceasefire agreement there. The ministry said that so far 4,057 have been killed and 12,121 have been wounded since the war began on March 2nd. The ministry said on Friday alone, 83 people were killed and 141 were wounded in Israeli occupation attacks on different parts of southern and eastern Lebanon. Mediators were scrambling to hold the fighting between the Israeli occupation and the militant of Hezbollah. To mitigate the conflict, U.S. State Department said that the next round of Lebanese-Israeli occupation talks is due in Washington from June 23rd to 25th. The announcement comes after the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Lebanese President Joseph Aoun spoke by phone. Aoun said a comprehensive ceasefire must serve as a fundamental basis for any direct negotiations with the occupation. On its part, Doctors Without Borders warned of an unprecedented escalation in the humanitarian crisis in Lebanon due to the ongoing military offensive since last March, emphasizing that the healthcare system is on the brink of total collapse under the weight of targeted medical facility, funding shortages, and the influx of wounded and displaced people.
تؤكد جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي جاهزيتها للاستجابة للطوارئ والكوارث في ظل الأوضاع الجيوسياسية الحاصلة في المنطقة. جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي تعمل من ضمن منظومة إنسانية متكاملة مع مؤسسات دولة الكويت من حيث الاستجابة السريعة وتجهيز المتطوعين من ضمن أفرقة مختلفة للاستجابة للطوارئ في سرعة قصوى. يعد متطوعين جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي من المتطوعين اللي تم تدريبهم مكثفاً في الإسعافات الأولية والاستجابة للكوارث والاستجابة الميدانية. تؤكد جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي جاهزيتها الميدانية ورفع جاهزيتها من حيث الاستجابة للطوارئ في حالات اللي يتم ندائها. بالنسبة للمخزون الاستراتيجي لجمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي فإحنا على أتم الاستعداد للاستجابة في حال النداء من قبل مؤسسات حكومة دولة الكويت.
الإدارة العامة للدفاع المدني على استعداد تام وجاهزية عالية، ونعمل وفق خطط مدروسة ومحدثة باستمرار لمواجهة أي طارئ، ونتابع مع الجهات الحكومية كل ما يخص احتياجاتها لضمان استمرار نظام سير العمل وعجلة الإنتاج وسير الحياة الطبيعية، ونقول للجميع سلامتكم أولويتنا.
منظومة الاتصالات بالكويت شغالة بكفاءة عالية ولله الحمد، والهيئة العامة للاتصالات وتقنية المعلومات مستعدة لأي طارئ لا قدر الله. وفي ظل التوترات اللي تمر فيها المنطقة، فعلنا خطط الطوارئ وعززنا التعاون مع الجهات المعنية عشان نضمن استقرار الخدمات الرقمية وسرعة الاستجابة لأي مستجد. الوضع تحت المتابعة وكل الجهات المختصة على أتم الجاهزية. عسى الله يحفظ الكويت وأهلها.
الحرس الوطني قادة وقوات دائما على استعداد وجاهزية تامة لحماية الوطن بالتعاون مع زملاء السلاح في وزارتي الدفاع والداخلية وقوة الإطفاء العام، وتقديم الدعم والإسناد لكافة جهات الدولة خاصة في أوقات الأزمات والطوارئ. ونسأل الله أن يحفظ وطننا الكويت من كل مكروه في ظل قيادته الرشيدة.
بتوجيهات مباشرة ومتابعة حثيثة ومتواصلة من قبل مجلس الوزراء ووزيرة الشؤون الاجتماعية الدكتورة أمثال الحويلة، سارعت وزارة الشؤون إلى وضع الخطط المسبقة التي تهدف من خلالها إلى المحافظة على مستويات المخزون الاستراتيجي من السلع المواد الغذائية والاستهلاكية، ولضمان سلاسة وسهولة تدفقها إلى الأسواق التعاونية. قامت وزارة الشؤون ممثلة بقطاع التعاون بتشكيل 6 فرق ميدانية بواقع فريق لكل محافظة، وذلك للمتابعة اليومية للتأكد من كفاية المخزون الاستراتيجي. إن هذا العمل هو ثمرة تنسيق وتخطيط مسبق مع جهات الدولة المختصة التي وضعت لضمان استدامة الأمن الغذائي في مختلف الأوقات، ودامت الكويت بحفظ الله ورعايته.
منظومة الاتصالات بالكويت شغالة بكفاءة عالية ولله الحمد، والهيئة العامة للاتصالات وتقنية المعلومات مستعدة لأي طارئ لا قدر الله. وفي ظل التوترات اللي تمر فيها المنطقة فعلنا خطط الطوارئ وعززنا التعاون مع الجهات المعنية عشان نضمن استقرار الخدمات الرقمية وسرعة الاستجابة لأي مستجد. الوضع تحت المتابعة وكل الجهات المختصة على أتم الجاهزية. عسى الله يحفظ الكويت وأهلها.
تؤكد جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي جاهزيتها للاستجابة للطوارئ والكوارث في ظل الأوضاع الجيوسياسية الحاصلة في المنطقة. جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي تعمل من ضمن منظومة إنسانية متكاملة مع مؤسسات دولة الكويت من حيث الاستجابة السريعة وتجهيز المتطوعين من ضمن أفرقة مختلفة للاستجابة للطوارئ في سرعة قصوى. يعد متطوعين جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي من المتطوعين اللي تم تدريبهم مكثفاً في الإسعافات الأولية والاستجابة للكوارث والاستجابة الميدانية. تؤكد جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي جاهزيتها الميدانية ورفع جاهزيتها من حيث الاستجابة للطوارئ في حالات اللي يتم ندائها. بالنسبة للمخزون الاستراتيجي لجمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي فإحنا على أتم الاستعداد للاستجابة في حال النداء من قبل مؤسسات حكومة دولة الكويت.
Dear viewers, before we conclude our special live coverage, we are taking a Zoom call all the way from Geneva with our KTV correspondent, Dina Abi Saab. Dina, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hello.
Now, I'm going to dive right in. The negotiations on Switzerland are now underway after several delays and uncertainty. What is the atmosphere surrounding the talks in Geneva today? And what are diplomats and negotiators saying about the chances of achieving a lasting agreement?
Actually, the situation I'm in Bergenstock, by the way, the venue where this meeting is taking place. And as much as we know from our sources is that the situation is very tense between parties, and the primary meeting started already a few minutes ago, and a lot of points are put on the agenda, which is we can talk about different hardest points of contention beyond the nuclear file. 3 clusters repeatedly surfaced are the most intractable. The scope and verification of nuclear limits themselves, the future of sanctions and access to frozen assets, and the rules of the game in regional theaters and critical waterways. Of course, Lebanon remains the same, the first point on the agreement. The implementation of ceasefire in Lebanon was very critical until now, and the Iranians pushed to an end of aggression, Israeli aggression on Lebanon. And on the nuclear side, Iran's refusal to give an uranium enrichment entirely confronts a U.S. demand for binding guarantees against weaponization and more intrusive monitoring. Sanctions, relief, and frozen assets are equally fraught. Tehran wants front-loaded irreversible measures and guarantees against future snapback, while Washington ties meaningful relief to face compliance and behavior change, particularly over missile and regional militias. Maritime security and the Strait of Hormuz form the third major fault line as Iran seeks recognition of its security interests and levers over Gulf shipping, where the U.S. Insists on freedom of navigation and protection of a corridor carrying significant share of global oil flows. Layered onto all this are disagreement about Iran's missile program, which is not included in the paper until now, and it is support for partners such as Hezbollah in Lebanon and Houthis in Yemen and other parties in Iraq, issues that Washington frames a non-negotiable for any broader deterrent, but which Tehran sees as core to its deterrence posture.
Now, it's like you stated earlier, one of the major concerns surrounding the talks is the situation in Lebanon and the fragile ceasefire on the ground. To what extent is the continued violence in Lebanon affecting the negotiations? Could it derail progress toward a broader agreement?
Actually, Iranians linked their presence here in Burgenstock to a permanent ceasefire in Lebanon. And they refused to come to Burgenstock before the implementation of this first point by pushing USA to push its ally, Israel, to stop the aggression and attacks on Lebanon. On the ground, the situation is calmer in Lebanon, and that's why we have seen the Iranian leaders here in Burgenstock ready to speak and ready to go through a very long negotiation period, a negotiation of 60 days period, which concerns more about technical problems, about all the details mentioned in the first agreement, which was signed by US and Iran presidents.
Now, both Pakistan and Qatar have played a visible mediation role in bringing the parties together. How significant has their diplomatic involvement been? And are mediators optimistic, even if it was cautiously, that they can bridge the remaining gaps between Washington and Tehran?
We know that the gaps are huge between both parties, and the role of any mediator is to keep hope and to keep pushing parties to reach an agreement. And the path until reaching this agreement, no one can say that it's an easy path or an easy way to reach the solution. Pakistan and Qatar have emerged as key facilitators in this phase, using their channels to both capitals and to other regional players to get closer all the parties. The process through multiple crises. Accounts of the diplomatic choreography describe Pakistan mediators spending weeks juggling late night calls, draft texts, and security assurances, while the late push from Qatar helped secure the preliminary understanding that paved the way for the present talks in Switzerland. Their involvement is significant on several levels. They provide politically acceptable venue, help broker contact with non-Western actors, and offer public ownership of the process that can make it easier for Washington and Tehran to defend compromise at home. Yet even sympathetic sources caution that while mediators are optimistic about keeping the track open, turning an interim deal into a permanent account will be considerably harder than arranging the current talks, particularly once the negotiation touches core security doctrines and domestic red lines. We can add that Switzerland also played an important role by opening its doors to receive parties and to secure this high-level meeting in Bergenstock by offering more than 2,000 militants to secure this venue, and which is very strictly secured.
Dina Abi Saab, our KTV correspondent from Switzerland, regarding the latest in the talks between the two sides, Iran and the United States. We thank you for your valuable input, as usual. Iran has once again announced the closing of the Strait of Hormuz amid escalating tensions stemming from Israeli occupation military operations in Lebanon. At the same time, U.S. President Donald Trump has affirmed that no transit fees will be imposed on vessels passing through the strategically important waterway. There are the details.
Iran has once again announced the closure of the vital Strait of Hormuz over Israeli occupation attacks in Lebanon as Iranian and U.S. negotiators head to Switzerland today for talks on implementing a deal to end the Middle East conflict. Iran's announcement came hours after the U.S. Central Command confirmed that 55 commercial ships had transited the strait yesterday, the highest single-day number since Iran effectively shut the waterway earlier, though still far below the pre-war average of about 130 vessels per day. Additionally, the Navy of Iran's Revolution Guard Corps later warned all vessels to stay away from the strategic waterway, saying their safety could not be guaranteed. The strait, an important conduit for oil and gas shipments, was blockaded by Iran for much of the war, sending shockwaves through global energy markets. Tehran had also agreed to reopen the strait under the preliminary accord signed this week by President Donald Trump and his Iranian counterpart Masoud Pezeshkian. Key mediator Pakistan, meanwhile, asserted that the technical level talks will begin today in Switzerland, with Qatari mediators also participating. Meanwhile, United States President Donald Trump has pledged there will be no tolls for passage through the Strait of Hormuz unless they are collected by his own country. In related actions, oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz picked up as 3 Indian-flagged tankers have safely transited the Strait of Hormuz. Earlier this week, the U.S. and Iranian presidents signed an initial agreement aiming to end the war, including in Lebanon, with immediate effect. It includes a commitment to further talks to reach a final deal over the next 60 days.
Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan has remained an active and steady voice throughout these developments, maintaining open channels with multiple parties and quietly supporting the push toward dialogue. For more on that role, we're joined by phone by political analyst Abdulrahman Al-Salhi from Pakistan. Nice to have you with us in the show, Abdulrahman.
Thank you for having me with you.
Well, since we're talking through Zoom, I want to ask, Pakistan and Qatar have both been actively engaged in efforts to reduce tensions and encourage dialogue between Washington and Tehran. From your perspective, how important was this regional mediation in helping both sides reach the current understanding?
Thank you very much. Yes, definitely they still playing very important role. You know, like at the beginning there was a war. And at that time, there was like the United Nations, which they were the responsible one about the peaceful and security in the region. They did not do anything, or they couldn't do anything. So at that point, Pakistan came and they played like the regional security, and they tried their level best to bring these two, fighters together. To the table, and they were trying their level best, especially Pakistan. They are historically well known in their back channel diplomacy, negotiations. So when also Qatar joined them, Qatar they are well established in the crisis management, also negotiations. So both of them they integrated, and both of them they are working, together. And then today, what we have seen that, after like 3 months since April 10th of April at least, last April up to date, we are witnessing now a historical moment today by their, gathering there. As the Prime Minister of Pakistan said, this day is like one of the greatest days in the world, in the history. And we are aiming to bring the, the security to the world, not only to the region. So they were playing very important role, and this it has a fruitful, results. And that's what we are witnessing today, the technical teams or the high technical teams, which they are going to negotiate.
Abdulrahman, many observers describe the current truce as fragile. Do you believe this agreement has the foundations necessary to endure, or are we looking at a temporary arrangement designed to prevent further escalation?
Yeah, definitely it's fragile, but fragile is better than, better than war, at least. That's what they were trying, Pakistan, they were trying. Yes, at the beginning there was, we said that war, then they came to the fragile, situations. Then discussions has become negotiations. Then failure of the first, talk round in Islamabad here has been held. Then after that, that was just the starting of the bringing these two together. These two enemies together, and increasing the trust between them. And then second round was failed because the people they did not come. At that time, so on April. Then the third one now, trying, which it was in Switzerland. Now it has been at least done. Yes, it's fragile, but moving slowly towards a permanent, peaceful, at least in the peace in the region. So that's what we are. At least what we are witnessing. If we come to see the first day of war, and we see after 10 days of war, and we see today, for example, we will see the difference. Yes, there is some strikes happened here and there. There is some, for example, like what we have witnessed, that there was like strikes, from Iran towards the Gulf countries. There were like there was like some air strikes also in Iran from United States, or again, then after that, when they came to the truce, at least it has been, broken by Israel when they were attacking Lebanon, and they keep attacking Lebanon again and again. But still, this is more better, than continuous war, and very clear that now we are in a war zone, not in a fragile zone. So what we are expecting, the people at least are expecting, the people who are near to the negotiations, or to the leaderships at least, they believe that, like a first round has been concluded, second round, which has been started today. As you know, Pakistan, they have divided to 3 phases. First one, it was just bringing both enemies together, Iran and USA together, and that was trying to increase or build the trust. Second one, it was the phase, what we can call it, of the text, and we have seen that they have wasted almost 2.5 months only just on the drafts. And on each point at the end, yes, they came to 14 points, but these 14 points, it took more than 2 months, everyone commenting on that point, until finally they have been agreed, which Pakistan has concluded that and declared before on 19th of this month, when they said, now this phase has been finished, and we are going now to move toward the third phase, that is the implementation of what we have agreed. So the second phase has been, finished and signed, and which known as Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding, at least from all parties, from Iran, from USA, and witnessed by Pakistan. Now they move towards the implementation phase, which it is the most difficult one. And Islamabad today believes that those two phases were easier, the most easy. The difficult one is this, the third one, the implementation. For every point, there might be some fighting sometimes, or there might be some, issues happen, or maybe we can see, like yesterday, for example, when we saw that, okay, if we did not, for example, if the war on Lebanon will not stop from Israeli side, we will close Hormuz, Strait of Hormuz, for example. That was one point. Second thing is that Israel, they were trying their level best to penetrate, this type of MOU, as they were saying that we are not part of it, at least, so that we will have our free hands during the 60 days, so that we can attack what we want. And then we have seen that, like the diplomacy from Pakistan, from Qatar, from the region, especially the Gulf countries, from China, maybe they have pressurized something, maybe, or they talk or advise USA to control at least Israel at this time. And we have seen that the war has been, the attack on Lebanon at least announced yesterday that it has been stopped. So this type of fragile, yes, it's there, but it's moving gradually towards the peace of the region. And that is, maybe I'm optimistic, but what we have seen, the history of these 4 or 3.5 months of talk and fighting, it leads to this type of optimistic, which I am talking about.
So my last question for you, what do you believe poses the greatest threat to the success of the current understanding? Is it unresolved differences between Washington and Tehran, or developments in regional files such as Lebanon, or the actions of other actors who may not share the same interest in seeing these negotiations succeed?
This is a very intelligent question, but the thing is that, and it needs a lot of, maybe complete 1 hour to be explained. But what I can understand that there is Pakistan today believes that if within these 2 months or 60 days, if they can succeed in 50%, 50% of these points, it's more than enough. So they can extend it, and it has been written in the last 14 points that if they need more extension, it can be based on the mutual agreement between both sides. So they can extend it again for 60 days. So what we have seen that, yes, the people, they started talking about the easy points, or at least not the red lines of each other, like Strait of Hormuz, for example, and the de-escalation or relaxation, the forces, U.S. forces from Iran, ports, at least in this time. So this is one point, which will be solved within 30 days, so that the Strait of Hormuz will again come